This is not going to be a video just ragging on the Sony RX1R Mark III, mainly because I haven't used the camera and I don't know if I'll get to use it anytime soon. But as polarizing as it is with its $5,000 price tag, I think it's resetting the small camera market, or at the very least making other cameras a much better buy. Like, the camera that you thought might have been overpriced before, maybe it looks a little bit better now. And I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money, but as someone that's owned the Fujifilm X100VI for a year and a half and recently fell in love with the Nikon ZF, not a pocketable camera, but still a great everyday carry, I've got some things you might want to consider before buying any compact camera. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris Hagan, a video producer and photographer in Portland, Oregon. And when it comes to the small camera market that seems to be getting more expensive by the day, I think we need to check ourselves a bit and figure out what actually matters. And that's what I want to do in this video. We'll start with the camera that's all of a sudden a much better value, talk about some of the features that do and don't make sense in these compact bodies, take a look at some good options that don't cost $5,000, and then you can be the judge of what's worth your money. When it comes to discussing and comparing cameras, especially online where we don't all have the same access to the same ones, we compare specs and what the camera can do on paper. Sometimes it's all we have to go by outside of camera reviews. And on that note, shout out to everyone that's reviewed the RX1R Mark III. I think as a whole, they've been some of the most realistic, unbiased, honest, and helpful critiques that I've seen in a while. Anyway, while we discuss specs, there's one thing that has to be included now, especially in the compact category, and that's price. That's what Sony reminded us of, and that's why the Fujifilm X100VI, to me, remains one of the best values in that compact market. Say what you want about it, call it a toy, call it a TikTok camera, label it overhyped, but when I see everything that it has that Sony's RX1R3 does not, it makes it even more remarkable. Sure, Sony's new compact is a little bit smaller, but using size to justify price is a bit overblown to me, and I'll speak more in depth on that toward the end of the video. I mean, I get that the X100VI is not full frame, it doesn't have 61 megapixels and doesn't have a Zeiss lens attached to it, but as a point and shoot or a camera that's easy to take everywhere to capture everyday memories, do you need that? Because I know what I do need. I need a screen that tilts out for waist level shooting, not just for pictures of my daughter, but in general, it helps with composition while capturing unique angles. I need an ND filter, so if I want to actually shoot my lens at its brightest aperture during the day, I'm not limited since the leaf shutter in these cameras tops out at 1/2000th of a second when shooting at f2. I need in-body image stabilization for the option of slow shutter photos, or at the very least, the confidence to shoot below 1/100th of a second handheld. I also need it if I want to make my camera a dad cam or just capture beautiful video where I'm at and take advantage of 4K and or 6K resolutions. These are all things that are available in the X100VI for less than $2,000, which is less than half the price of the RX1R Mark III. And to be fair, the X100VI doesn't have Sony's autofocus, and it's not going to blow out the background like a full-frame f2 lens. But even as someone that loves that full-frame look, that's far from a deal breaker. Plus, I don't really need that in a camera that I'm just taking casual photos with. And even if the thought of wanting the image quality of that 61 megapixel full frame sensor does cross my mind, which it does sometimes, knowing that you can open up a lot more creativity with the ability to crop and maintain high resolution, it's certainly not anything I'd pay another $3,000 for in a casual camera. The X100VI doesn't hold me back from the photos I want to take in the autofocus or image quality categories. My point is, for the use of an everyday fun camera, I can't ask for more. The features that I would want for critical photography exist in more professional cameras, and even those can be had for considerably less than $5 grand. And I think the RX1R Mark III is making a lot of us think before we buy, not just with that camera, but with any camera. I think the first thing you got to ask yourself is, how am I going to use this camera and lens? Is it an everyday camera? Is it a luxury? Is it just for travel? Could it be for work and help pay for itself or work within your business? From there, assign it a value. What's the most you'd pay for a hobby, or a backup camera for work, or something you're just going to take casual photos with? And when you have that value assigned, then you can start to look at specs and how much it's going to cost you. For example, my X100VI is strictly a fun camera. I throw it in my bag for paid jobs just in case it ever fits the mood, or I want to throw in some fun direct flash photos, but it's just not what I prefer to do work with. Its value to me comes from how easy it is to use as an everyday and travel camera, thanks to its small size. And for my budget, I also think it's appropriately priced for its size and features available. Actually, I think it's probably worth more than what you pay for it, considering what else is on the market, but we'll get there in just a second. Originally, I was going to try to list options based on exact price, but in this economy, that's a fool's errand because tariffs are changed by the hour and there's just constant uncertainty, especially for pricing electronics right now. So all of these numbers are approximate. I'll throw out a few popular cameras in the $800 to $2,000-ish range, maybe a little more now, unfortunately. Most are just the camera body and don't have a fixed lens, so there would be an additional cost for the lens, but especially for APS-C cameras, as I talked about in a recent video, there are some really solid, really inexpensive options there too. The goal is just to let you know what to look up for yourself and keep an eye on. So to start, you've got a little video powerhouse, the Fujifilm X-M5. It makes some compromises, but can film 6K open gate footage and take some great photos for under $1,000. The Ricoh GR series are also around that price and maybe a little more or less on the used market. The Nikon ZF-C is a stylish option in that same ballpark. The Lumix S9 is a full frame option around $1,500. Like the XM5, it also makes some compromises like a mechanical shutter and viewfinder, but it's a great buy for video creators. There's the recently released Fujifilm X-E5, really close to an X100VI if you want an interchangeable lens camera. And then just on the other side of $2,000, you've got Sony's A7C II, and you go up from there to the A7CR around $3,000. I think actually a little more now. And then things get really pretty expensive, but still less than $5,000. And again, that's probably not everything, but they are some of the most popular options to serve as a good starting point. Now, as we know, there's no perfect camera because there's 0% chance we'd all agree, and that's fine. But I do think there are a few things you should consider before spending your money. All of that leads me to the next question to ask yourself: what are you paying for? Size combined with performance is worth paying a premium. That's why the X100VI costs what it does. That's why the A7CR at a little more than $3,000 costs what it does. But still, what's the hook? What makes the camera special? Both of the ones that I just mentioned offer at least one or two class-leading features within their compact bodies. Leica's Q series has a legendary and legendarily expensive 28mm lens fixed to it. The RX1R Mark III, not just based on what I see on a spec sheet, but based on what really talented photographers have said about it after using it in real life, just has too many shortcomings to justify the price. The lens is old and doesn't seem up to par with Sony's newer glass. The LCD screen is fixed to the body. There is no internal ND filter with the leaf shutter to help in bright conditions. Maybe if it was just one or two of those things that were an issue, it would be an easier pill to swallow. The real shame is that it is an incredible win for Sony's engineering to make a full-frame camera with 61 megapixels this small. And I've seen the reports that it's selling quite well. So that's awesome for Sony, and hopefully they refine it and take the feedback and improve on it in a future iteration of the camera. I just don't think that right now it's a win for the consumer at that price. And that's not to say the images out of that RX1R Mark III won't be excellent. With that sensor and autofocus, I'm sure it'll make whoever buys it really happy. You can do a lot with it and take it a lot of places that you may not want to or be able to bring a larger full-frame camera. But you can do a lot of the same things with a lot less expensive options. And look, I'm not trying to go after one camera or brand. I currently shoot Sony most of the time and for all of my paid work. It's just for much less, you can get the same 61 megapixels in the A7CR and pair it with better glass without sacrificing too much size. So you're literally just paying for that extra small size of the RX1R Mark III, which brings me back to a point I really want to make. As much as I like a small camera like the X100VI, I'm just as happy carrying a bigger body as my everyday camera. And also, bigger is relative in the mirrorless world because just about everything is smaller and lighter than DSLRs. Point being, if the X100VI didn't take great photos, I wouldn't be using it strictly for its size. There's gotta be a point where image quality, size, and price cross over and make sense. So my solution, what would I look for if I was in the market for a small camera today? Well, start with price. Even if your budget is, say, $2,500, start well below that and work your way up to find the features you need. Modern cameras these days are so good that you probably don't need the latest and greatest. In fact, start on the used market. You can save hundreds by buying a camera that's still in like new or excellent condition. The next thing is to really think about how much size matters. The compact fixed lens cameras are hot right now, but it's the lens that usually adds the most size to your setup, especially on Sony cameras. Their full frame Alpha series and A6000 series crop sensor camera bodies are pretty small. So if you get a smaller lens, of which there are plenty available to go with the body, you've got your compact camera setup and you've probably saved a lot of money. The same goes for a lot of Fujifilm's X series camera bodies, as well as some of Nikon and Canon's APS-C options. Even a rather beefy full frame option like the Nikon ZF, near and dear to my heart, can be turned into an easier camera to carry with a small prime lens. As far as technical specs, I like anything north of 20 megapixels. That's plenty for casual use, even if you're gonna do some light cropping. In-body image stabilization is nice for shooting in low light sometimes, but I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker if you can save a few dollars on something like Fujifilm's X-T32, which can be found for under $1,000, especially if you're primarily using the camera for photography. A flash on the body is nice, even though I'd say that's just a bonus as well. There are some really slick third-party flashes that you can add to the camera these days. This IT30 Pro from Godox is one of them. It's been an awesome pairing with my A7 IV and would work well on smaller bodies too. And finally, autofocus. I know I harp on it a lot in my videos, but it just needs to be good relative to the price and how much it's worth to you. I prioritize it because for work and this YouTube channel, I need solid photo and video autofocus. And at home, well, I have a toddler, and if I actually want her to be in focus, it needs to be able to track pretty well. But not everyone needs that. Just do your research. All of these things and a lot more in terms of features can be had for less than $2,000 and sometimes a lot less than that. Just make sure you're paying for form and function. A small camera that's packed with features is awesome. A small camera that cuts corners and charges a premium is a bit of a headache. Thanks for watching. I love your thoughts on this and the small camera market right now. I get the hype, but also size just isn't everything. Avoid that trap, and I'll see you next time.